Welcome back to the Becoming Her podcast. And I am pretty freaking hyped this week because it has been a few weeks since we have all three been together. And at the end of the day, life just lifes. And between, like we said, vacations and then Bouquet got sick here for a little bit. It's been a hot minute since we've all been together. So I'm really freaking hyped because I know the energetics in and around when we're just all three together are fire, 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 fire. And again, you guys, I know I say this every single time, but I feel like we have a pretty dope episode for you guys today. And we're going to be chatting all things how to lose the weight and actually keep it off, with an emphasis of actually keep it off, because I feel like that's the missing link for so many people. It is so easy to crash diet, take calories down to dog shit low amounts, do something unsustainable for a short period of time to get the weight off as quickly as you possibly can. But when it comes to losing it, and again, actually keeping it off, that requires education, that requires strategy. And that is exactly what we're going to be chatting about today. With Bouquet and Ann, I'm really, really excited to hear what they have to bring to this conversation. For those of you that don't know, both Bouquet and Ann are on my team, but they have also both been through my program and they've, utilized one-on-one coaching. They know the effects and the power of it. So I'm excited to talk about what we're doing, not just from a, macro workout stance, but also what we're doing from an internal hormonal perspective, as well as a mindset perspective. And it all very much so links together. So do you guys have any thoughts or feedback before we jump in?
No, I'm excited.
No, let's go.
Let's go. I know. Bouquet's like fired up. She feels better. She's got the energy. She's bringing in the spice. So I want to really chat about how we implement this on my team, because we cycle through phases on my team. And very much so, I always say there's a reason behind every single freaking season. And there is a strategy behind every single thing that we do. And so I'm going to cycle through, like I said, the method that we utilize. And so for our listeners who are obviously not a part of one-on-one coaching, how they can implement this themselves. And I really want to dive deep into not just how you implement it, but the emotions that are going to be attached to each of these seasons, because they're very much so going to drive the show. And if we can't get in front of the emotions attached to losing the weight and actually keeping it off, we will continue to ride what we reference as the vicious self-sabotaging merry-go-round, right? And so
Amen.
On my team, what we do is we implement what we call an awareness week before we will even put anything together for you. And what this awareness week is it's a week-long phase where we're going to have you go in and track for us every single thing that you put in your mouth. And we do not want you changing a thing. So we're going to come in and we're going to teach you how to track, not just accurately, but effectively. And we're going to ask, like I said, that you track and you don't change a thing. And what this is going to do is, just as it's called an awareness week, it's going to bring a lot of awareness to you in and around how much you're truly consuming. But what this does for us on a coaching perspective or a coaching standpoint is it gives us a really solid understanding of exactly where you're starting from, right? Because if we have a solid understanding of where you're currently at, then we can truly create a plan that's custom to you. But we're not trying to start on we're starting at step 1 instead of trying to start at step 5 or 10, right? Like we're not skipping over steps. We're starting you exactly where you're currently from. And there's so much freaking power to that, because I feel like a lot of women, what they tend to do is it's an all or nothing approach that produces all or nothing results. And so they try to change absolutely everything at once, and it becomes extremely overwhelming and daunting. And they end up giving themselves or quitting before they even give themselves a chance to succeed. Right. Wow. And so with this awareness phase, you're going to track for us, and that's going to give us the data that we need to put a plan together for you. So if this is something that you're looking to implement on your own, what we have our babes track is calories, protein, sleep, water, steps. And we want the data for that for a solid week. Again, we don't want you changing a thing. And this is going to require you guys, what I reference as you putting your big girl panties on, right? This is going to require you getting really freaking open and really freaking honest with yourself, because a lot of women, it's like now all of a sudden I'm tracking and I'm not going to eat the ice cream that I would typically eat because I don't want to really know the real damage. Kind of thing, right? And that's not setting us up for success. We need a solid starting space. So again, you're gonna have to get really open and you're gonna have to get really honest with yourself. And This is going to take some awareness in and around how to properly track. It's going to take you being mindful of these things. But once we have that data, we can then put a plan truly custom to you together. And so again, if you're listening to this, you're going to take this data and you're just going to get the average of all 5 of these numbers. I'm not so much looking for the day to day as much as I'm looking for the average of all of these numbers. And these averages are what we're going to utilize to pivot from, right? These averages are what we're going to utilize to start. This is our starting space. So once we have that data, we put that plan together for you. We move into what we call is a foundation phase on my team, because the first 4 weeks are going to feel really freaking overwhelming. We're coming in and we're almost flipping your whole world upside down, especially if you've never tracked before, especially if these are things that you haven't necessarily been mindful of. And now we're starting to come in and say, okay, these are going to be some emphasis for us, right? And so the first 4 weeks, the emotions can run high because it can feel overwhelming. And so really being able to take this down into bite-sized chunks and really give yourself a few solid weeks just to like get your bearings and really develop and start to master these basics is a big, big piece of this, because accuracy is going to drive our success. And in the very beginning, again, it's not that tracking is quote unquote hard. It's just new, and anything new comes with a bit of a learning curve. Dr. Ann, I'd really love your thoughts on this, because I know she's over here shaking her head and she's grinning for those that aren't watching on the Zoom video, but I know that this is something that you really have to work through with a lot of your clients as well, is, really starting to take really small bite-sized chunks and quote unquote the snowball effect as we start to implement and build new habits. So you want to dive a bit deeper here for me?
Well, and one of the things that I really wanted to comment on is I love that idea of also being brutally honest, because we can lie to ourselves about what we're consuming, but we cannot lie to our body. So it's going to show up somewhere.
Mhm.
But one of the things that I know that, and I work with people a lot on, and it doesn't matter what I'm working with them on. I'm in front of a couple and we're working on communication skills and trigger points, or it could be I'm working with somebody with addiction, or I'm working with somebody with an eating disorder. And everything that I do when it comes to changes and seasons of change is in bite-sized increments.
Mm.
And I tell people it's almost like leveling up in therapy. It's like but we can't bypass level 1. And it doesn't have to do with intelligence. It doesn't have to do with how much you love yourself or love someone else. It doesn't even have to do with how much you've already investigated or Google searched or thought that you got the right treatment or the right material or the right diet before, but you failed because your willpower failed. It always goes back to level 1 and getting the core basics and then building off of it week by week. And so, when I talk with people as they're going through the thing, going through my own system, one of the things that they'll say is, I feel like you keep saying the same things. And I'm like, yes,
Yes.
I am. And
Repetition.
because it's that repetition that nails it home for us. And think of it almost like spinning a plate. I don't know if anybody's ever been to a circus. I'm kind of old, and so those of us that have been to circuses, I feel you and you feel me. We know what we're talking about. But they would spin plates, and they always start with one plate and then they move to a second. They don't start with trying to spin all the plates all together. But what winds up happening is at the end of a performance with someone who's successfully spinning these plates is they've got dozens, if not more than that, of plates spinning all at the same time that then they just tweak constantly to keep in rotation.
Mhm.
And so what I like to talk a lot about is that momentum builds, and it's easier to keep momentum going and create small changes once we get the momentum
100%.
initially. And that's the hardest step, is getting that initial momentum and taking off such a small bite and really fine tuning that first step so well that by the time we move to the second step, the first step is already automated. I already know how to do this in my sleep, backwards, forwards, night and day. I can do it. I don't have triggers to it. It's not creating problems for me. I can track. I can be honest with myself.
100%. Do you feel like you struggle with some of your patients at times? And something that I know we really struggle with on our team is that people really want to bypass the basics because they're not sexy and they're not glamorous, right? And it's not what's going to produce that instant quick fix. And so we tend to want to hyper focus on the thing that we think is going to give us the quickest, the fastest results. And the basics completely get neglected. And in reality is the basics are what drive our success when, again, the goal is to actually be able to keep it off. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts in and around that as well.
Yes. So it's funny that you're talking about this. I always love having an example. This week, I actually worked with a couple who has gone through this long process. And when we were first starting, they said, why do we keep having to talk about how we're communicating? And I kept going back to, what is your delivery? How does this, how is this working? And every single time I'd come back to it, they'd be like, yeah, I didn't do that, but I did do this, but I really didn't do it this way. Right. And I'd be like, okay, well, we got to do it this way. And they're like, but why? I was doing what you wanted me to do. I just didn't do it the right way. And I said, yes, that is it. Kudos you did it. Yay. Now we got to fine tune it, because the delivery of our message really impacts how someone hears us. And in this respects, fine tuning those first points, getting in enough water, getting in enough sleep, right? It isn't beautiful. It isn't glamorous. It isn't all the calorie slashing or what am I eating with food, but it's the bare bones basic of what even our nervous system needs to stay regulated. And if your nervous system isn't regulated and you move into slashing calories, a dysregulated nervous system, and I'm sure Bucket, you're shaking your head, you get this too, right? A dysregulated nervous system is going to be a nervous system bathed in cortisol, super stressed. I can't do anything. My body can't do anything in that high state of dysregulation. I would say that even in couples counseling, if you're so dysregulated, you can't have a conversation without swearing or name calling or throwing something or losing. You got to get regulated before you have that conversation, period.
100%.
All of the skills go out the window if we're not regulated. And I say that even to new mamas when they're like, but my baby's crying, I can't. You got to go get regulated. Your baby's going to survive a few minutes of crying, but you're not going to do a good job if you show up and you're blowing your gasket because your baby won't stop crying. And most of what we learn in life is backwards of that. It's always, especially for us women, it's always take care of other people first. It's always do the next thing for someone else and not the first thing for us.
There's so much power to that. And I love how you're linking this to not just right now, we're talking obviously fat loss, losing the weight and keeping it off, but this applies to so many areas of our life and how we show up as just human beings to be the best mom, wife, friend, daughter, employee, right? That we can be, we truly have to understand these concepts. And so I really love that you're connecting this to more. And yes, again, this is about losing the weight, keeping it off, but it really does impact every area of our life. So I love, love, love that. So I really want to dive into, once we work through what we call the foundation phase, we move into what we reference as the revamp phase. And this is going to look slightly different for every single person on our program, because again, everything we do is custom, and what you're doing should be custom to you as well, right? If you're trying to follow the program that your best friend Susie down the road is doing, and she was able to lose all of this weight off of keto and intermittent fasting, right? Great, awesome, cool, love that for her, but that's for her, that isn't for you. And Dr. Ann's over here like shaking her head again for those that are not watching on the Zoom. But truly, it's something that just like, it boils my blood when people want to talk generic in this approach, because generic isn't going to cut it. You are a very unique individual with unique needs, starting at a different place than Susie is, with your own metabolism, your own goals, your own starting space, your own nervous system. There's so many things that go into this. So when we move our babes into what we call the revamp phase, again, this is going to look very different for everybody, because we have babes that come to us truly in a space where they're under eating the majority of the time, right? And that's going to look like us strategically bringing calories up to a space of maintenance and living there. We have babes who come to us overeating, and that's going to look like us bringing calories down to maintenance for a period of time. But I want to talk about the power of what we call and reference our revamp phase, but the power of maintenance, because maintenance, when I say maintenance, you guys, I'm referencing maintenance calories. And maintenance is so undervalued, because it's not that people either want to be in phases where they're like quote unquote bulking. You hear bulking or building terms often, right? Of like, oh, need to add as much muscle to my frame, or phases of dieting, cutting, fat loss phases. And very few people really prioritize the power of what maintenance can bring. And maintenance is going to give us not just a space of, I mean, we can make massive body recomp changes at maintenance, massive, but maintenance is really when we come in and we're prepping and priming our body. This is what I reference as building our runway, right? Because when we go out for fat loss on my team, we're out for blood. It is very strategic. Like none of our clients start a fat loss phase until we are 100% certain that their body's going to respond in the way that we want it to respond. But maintenance is us building that foundation. And because I really want to get your thought process of what we're doing in here, like obviously hormonally as we do this and we're fueling our body correctly. We're going to dive into that here in a second. But we're building the foundation, we're building that runway, but we're also, you guys, working on mastering our skill set. Because what people don't understand is that fat loss is two things. It is accuracy and it is consistency. And if those two things are not there, girlfriend, you are going to flounder. You are going to fall flat on your freaking face. And so this gives us a chance to master the basics, how we understand how to pivot when we need to pivot, how we understand that and plan that not everything always goes to plan. And when we have these foundations solid, right? And we have a core, like you can't build a house on a shitty foundation. Your fat loss phase is the same exact concept. And when we have these things mastered, and then this is a place too where we've worked on our relationship with food. There are so many that truly and I'm going to get Dr. Ann's thoughts on this here in a second before we go into dieting phase, and we're able to start from a place where calories are at a much higher standpoint. It is much easier to diet down starting from 2,400 calories a day than it is to diet down if you're going into this eating on average 1,300 calories a day. It makes a huge difference on the results that you're going to achieve, right? And so, because I really want to dive into as we fuel our body more, we start to prioritizing things that we need to prioritize. And when I say we have 6 non-negotiables on our team, you guys, and I say if you master these 6 things, you will never, ever, 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 ever struggle with dieting again. Calories, protein, sleep, water, steps, strength training. Master them. Master all 6 of them. But can you dive in though, what we're doing hormonally when we start to, especially for our babes, because that's the majority of our audience, right? Babes, perimenopause are starting to hit this phase of your journey, going into menopause, and hell, even post-menopause, what we're doing internally and hormonally when we start to prioritize these things?
So yeah, when you were saying maintenance, hormonally speaking, I want to call that homeostasis,
Yeah.
right? Maintenance is like homeostasis. It's the Goldilocks. It's the place where we want to live and thrive at most of the time. And our bodies love that because when we're in maintenance, we're giving our body enough calories, enough carbs, good carbs, enough movement. We're not overdoing things. We're right in that sweet spot. And that's for me, like I said, with hormones, homeostasis, because that's when the body says, okay, we have enough fuel. We can convert this into energy. We can give our thyroid the nutrients it needs because we're not starving. We can produce enough progesterone or buffer it because we're not stressed out, and cortisol is not high because we're not starving. So yeah, when you said maintenance, hormonally I see that as like homeostasis in the body. It's just this balance, this Goldilocks portion or Goldilocks bowl. So what we're doing to our body when we're in maintenance is exactly that. When you're giving your body the right nutrients, the right type of movement, the right mindset, the right sleep, you're able to function and have your hormones functioning at optimal levels. Now, of course, when we hit perimenopause, if you listen to our episode of Menopause is Your New Prime, we talked about perimenopause and menopause. Obviously, there's a time and place for replacement in order to optimize. However, if those 6 non-negotiables are not being practiced and we're not living in a maintenance mode before trying to cut calories or trying to go straight to fat loss, then we don't really know where we're at. We don't have that foundation. So having those 6 non-negotiables, living in maintenance, does amazing things for your hormones, whether you're a cycling woman that has optimal enough amount of hormones or in excess, or if you're in perimenopause and progesterone's leaving, or if you're in menopause and all of them's gone, you still have some amount of hormones there that can be optimized with what little you have with maintenance kind of phase, with that homeostasis phase. So yeah, absolutely. Maintenance is probably going to be the best place for your hormones, because even in excess, when we go up and we increase calories, some people even say like they feel a little sluggish even too, because it's a lot of food, it's a lot of energy. So I would say hormone wise, maintenance probably would be the best place to be 90% of the time, I guess, or 80% of the time, whereas the other 20 can be fat loss slash maybe a short bulking phase. But I agree. I was in maintenance phase a long time with you. In fact, I was finishing up MP school and we wanted to go on a cut, and my body fought that.
Yep,
And my
stress was high.
biofeedback was off.
Mhm.
And me and you spoke about that. And I'm like, I don't know. And you're like, well, you know what? We're not going to do it. We're going to go to maintenance and you're just going to live there for a long time. And I'm like, okay, I'm fine with that. I'll take
And
another 600 calories back.
yeah, right. And I love how we talk about too, like you said, if you link it back to the episode that we did where menopause is your new prime, we really dive into the fact that these 6 things are going to be the lifestyle factors that optimize your hormones. Because as Bouquet mentioned in the previous episode, and if you guys have not caught that episode, it's freaking fire. Please go listen to it.
Yes.
It was so freaking good. But
Mhm.
we can replace these hormones. And I have females that start with us they've started some sort of HRT or BHRT and they feel better, but it doesn't get down to the root of the menopausal belly or the additional weight gain that they swore they gained overnight, because these non-negotiables aren't being mastered, right? And so if you start, and there is even a space where you start some sort of hormone replacement therapy and you don't have these basics mastered, where it can lead to some fat gain and some weight gain, because we want to talk about that a little bit, Bouquet, when you're not practicing these things, but you start to implement the hormone piece of it.
Yeah. So if I'm giving you testosterone, naturally that drives in water into the muscle. You're going to gain some water weight. Some women will say, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm hungrier. Well, if you're not utilizing the excess testosterone I'm giving you, or the extra I'm giving you for what it's supposed to be for, enjoy it for libido, lift weights, go do some cardio, um, move your body in different ways, challenge yourself, eat more protein. If you're not doing those things, then you might actually gain weight. Yeah. And same thing for estrogen, too much estrogen can cause some weight gain. So there's a balancing act with hormones too. But I always say, like, your clients are one of my favorites because they come in already on the program. In fact, we have a your client now, my patient. She's already lost 5 pounds. She's been with you, and she kind of got to that phase where she's got all the non-negotiables, and there's just that last bit that she needs, and it was her hormones. We gave it to her, like I said, cherry on top. Boom, the weight started coming off. She's absorbing that testosterone, utilizing it the way she needs to. Sleeping like a baby because sleep was off due to not having progesterone. So these little factors, that the lack of hormones that were kind of plateauing her and causing stagnation, we were able to bust through. But if she would have came to me, for example, before having all these non-negotiables in place, I would have had to teach her both at the same time. And as Dr. Ann was saying, we need bites and bits and pieces. And it's really nice. I meet my patients where they're at. My parents where they're at. My patient, I must need to go see my parents. I meet my patients where they're at. And that means if they come to me and hormones are their concerns, sure, we'll start there. And I don't want to overwhelm them. But the ideal patient would be the one that has those non-negotiables already in place so that we can kind of drive to the next step. So yes, absolutely.
100%. And ideally in this phase, you guys, this is really where we're starting to not just master these non-negotiables and these basics, but we're starting to get a bit more strategic, right? We're implementing with our nutrition, and in phases of under eating, we're strategically bringing calories up. In phases, if we are overeating, then we're bringing calories back down to maintenance as we master these basics, but we're implementing a properly built strength training program that's focused on progressive overload with that. We are giving you goals that meet you exactly what Kat said, where you're currently at. So those are step goals. Those are water goals. Those are non-negotiables that we're looking at mastering daily. And this is truly prepping and priming our body for the best mother effing fat loss phase that you've ever had. And so this really is crucial and key. And what so many people want to do is they want to skip over this phase, because this phase is going to take, and how long you're in this phase is really it depends. And again, this should be custom to you, and everybody comes to me in a different space. But I will not, and there is not a coach on my team that will start a fat loss phase. I can tell you right now, if we have consistency, anything less than 85%. I can tell you that right now. If we cannot hit these non-negotiables when calories are higher and your body's thriving, what in the world makes you think that we're going to be able to do this when calories are lower? Right. So if we can't stay at least 85% consistent, I won't even entertain it. And I've had clients like throw fits of like you said about this time. And we always like to walk through and give estimates, right? Of like, this is where we see, and this is like an estimate of a time frame, but knowing that these targets move dependent on your adherence. And that's really a big driving piece of this. And so if you can't, like I said, hit an 85% consistency rating, I refuse to start a fat loss phase if your relationship with food is still in the shitter. And I really want to dive into this with Dr. Ann, because starting a fat loss phase when you still have a massive scarcity in and around food itself, or maybe a particular food group, or still demonizing food, or not understanding that there's no good versus bad, that food is truly fuel, is just going to it's just going to exacerbate it, right? Like it's just going to highlight all of the negative relation or all the negative emotions that you have. And so let's dive into this a little bit, Dr. Ann, because I really feel like people's relationship with food, I know that it's talked about, but I don't feel like it's explained in a way that because people think good versus bad, but I don't think they understand how deep rooted this is, that it truly goes back to a space of childhood for a lot of people. And being able to work through this is such a big piece of mastering losing the weight and actually being able to keep it off.
Yeah, I see a lot of performance perfectionism. Matter of fact, I'm gonna talk about that in a little bit, but performance perfectionism, but a lot of attachment of worthiness in relationship to not just the scale, but food itself. And sometimes this comes from people who grew up in families with a parent that was significantly overweight and chronically dieted, or talked about how much they needed to lose weight, or how much they sucked because they couldn't lose weight, and so they feel like they're mastering if they can do what their parent couldn't do. Other times it comes from parents who are overly rigid around food and very clean eating, not that that has to be a bad thing, but obsessively clean eating, where they feel like any deviation off of what the parent does gets a form of judgment, where they learn that like when they would have French fries from a regular retailer, that that their parent would like look down on them and say, oh, you're having that again, oh, well, that's not very good for you. And so what's interesting is that not only can we get that at home, but we also get that everywhere in the world. Marketing and media is really, really big on this. We praise people for losing weight really quickly at celebrities after they have babies. Oh, look at them, they're walking the red carpet in a size 0 6 weeks after giving birth. Guys, unless that's natural, like when they interview celebrities and they're like, yeah, I did this crash diet and worked out for 5 hours. Like that is not normal. That is not healthy. We shouldn't be celebrating that at all as a society. We shouldn't be celebrating that in other women. That is not what our bodies were designed to do. And if we're prioritizing our worthiness based upon what goes in and out of our mouth, and we're demonizing food, the donut, a cookie, a hostess, whatever it is, then what's happening is we're basing our worth on whether or not we can stay away from that food. And because of that, we get drawn to that food even more. And it becomes this internal battle of I suck as a human being when I do this. And then when we do that, what happens is that when we give ourselves permission, or our willpower fails and we have the food, now we want to eat all the food because we're making the commitment again to never eat it again after this one last moment. And this is where we get that concept of binging on these, what we call trigger foods, but binging on foods that we essentially create as bad foods, because I'm not going to do this again because it makes me a bad person, or makes me mean that I have willpower. No, you just enjoy the food. That's it.
Yes.
And so we've got to make peace with food, and we've got to stop listening to every single person on social media talk about random diets and the science behind food. Yes, there is some good science around food. We can talk more about that. Clean eating is good, but we have to also incorporate treats. We have to incorporate things that we love to eat. If you love fried foods, if you love French fries, if you love cookies, that has to be incorporated, not just in maintenance, but it also ironically has to be incorporated in some element of fat loss.
For sure. 100%
because otherwise we're going to lose it.
And I talk about this often, and it's something that I rant on my social media about, but it's like, I hear it all the time. Food is just fuel. And every single time I hear that, I want to lose my mind. I literally want to pull my hair out, because while yes, food is fuel, coming from a chick that likes to lift a lot of really heavy shit, food is absolutely fuel. And 85 to 90% of my day comes from single ingredient whole food sources. But food is also social. It's entertainment, it's gathering, it's enjoyment. I don't want to know a life without cookies or wine. I don't feel like you should either, right? And it's understanding how to eat the foods that we need and combine those with the foods that we love. But this whole mindset that clean eating versus, like, what is clean eating? Are you just implying that other food is dirty? Like, it's just such a negative correlation with food, right? And this mindset that food is just fuel, like you shouldn't be able to enjoy it. Like, who doesn't want to enjoy food? There's so much enjoyment that food gives me. Like, I love planning date nights and girls' nights out and whatnot in and around. Where are we going to go to dinner? Like, what new, sweet treat are we going to try? And there's just so much fun to that. And so to be able to have a space in a relationship with food that I talk about often, where you truly control it, it doesn't control you. And when I talk about this, guys, I want you to understand when I say that, that takes mindful effort to stay there, right? It's not something that we're like, oh, we get there and we just inherently like, that's it. No, it takes mindful effort to keep yourself in a space where you can honestly say that you control food, because I would be lying through my teeth if I didn't have moments where, you know what I mean? The scale might get the best of me, or I look at something, I'm like, do I really, right? Like, of course we're human beings, but at the end of the day, it's a logic versus emotion thing for me. And I can totally pinpoint now when I'm operating from a space of emotion instead of a space of logic. But that's natural human being. We're all going to get those emotions, but understanding that it's going to take mindful effort for you to stay there. And that requires you to continue to work through and tackle this. And so whether that be different routes, whether that be, podcasts and education that you listen to, or journaling, or whatever different routes that you have. And I'd love to walk through quickly, Dr. Ann, what you may utilize with some of your clients to be able to tackle some of these thoughts and emotions. But it truly does take mindful effort to stay here.
Yes. And there's a big chunk of this of being able to spot the lies and being able to spot the things that keep us stuck. So if in our head, I'm saying all of these foods are bad, or I lack willpower if I'm consuming these foods, we actively have to be able to identify it and then create new mantras. If I'm a bad person because I have a cookie, I have to actually overwrite that mantra and essentially say, cookies are just yummy things that I get to eat. It's my carb and my fat for today, right? I have to essentially demystify the cookie now. And I have to have a strategy in place to manage the cookie. I have one patient currently that struggles with brownies, and we're kind of remapping that trigger food, and she's eating a brownie a day. That's what she's doing. And she's like, and I have to have it at the end of the day, because otherwise I just want it the whole rest of the day and it would be really overwhelming. I put the rest of the brownies in the freezer, like it's this whole thing. And then she goes, but I've eaten one every single day and I haven't eaten more.
Yep.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. There's so much power to that. There's so much power to that.
And when we do that and we work on that and we show with a lot of mindfulness, and there's a plan around it,
Strategy,
yeah,
ladies, strategy.
there's a way that we're noticing what triggers us. For this person, it was, if I have this at noon, I'm going to want it the rest of the day. That's going to really overwhelm me. So I'm going to have it right before bed. Great.
Yep.
Wonderful. She's
Love
managed part of that, right? But when there's a strategy and a plan in place, and then we commit to that strategy and plan, we talk about that strategy and plan with our husbands, with our friends, with, I'm going to try this. It's going to be hard. And then we show up and we problem solve when it doesn't work. Now that whole process itself is how we get to the place of success.
Yep. I love that. So with maintenance, you guys, and what we reference as the revamp phase on my team, I really want to dive into the power and beauty of, because if there is one thing that you pull from this podcast, and there's just been a bazillion nuggets that have been dropped, but please do not be the person that thinks, just because I'm not dieting, I can't see success. I produce, toot my own horn, but we produce jaw-dropping results. I say my team, we produce jaw-dropping results. And they're just, quite literally, they're just they're asinine, they're crazy, right? And you look at this and you see these before and afters, and so many people automatically go to, how low do calories have to go? Like, how many carbs did they have to cut out? How many hours of cardio were they doing? But the reality is, I would say 85 to even 90% of the transformations that we post and that I utilize and show on social media happen in the phases when my girls are not dieting, happen in the phases when they're truly fueling their body correctly, and the power of what this phase can bring when we're talking body recomposition. And so when this phase is implemented correctly here being the key word, there is so much power to this phase. And this is really like, nothing fuels me more than when it clicks for my girls, when they cycle through these phases and they go through phases of maintenance and they've never truly understood what it felt like to fuel their body correctly, right? They're like, I've never had energy like this. I've never slept this good. My digestion's never been better. And then we put them through phases of fat loss and they're like, Nicole, how did I live here like this all of the time before? And they start to it starts to click for them that I talk about this often. Fat loss dieting phases is not your best life. There's a time and a place for it. It is it's a piece of the puzzle, but it's not the only piece of the puzzle, and we can't live there. And when that clicks, it's a game changer, because that instantly like puts you in a space where you don't want to live here and you look forward to more food, right? And that's a piece of this, the puzzle. And we're going to talk about that here more in a second. So again, ladies, there's so many things, and there's a reason behind every season, but there's so many things that we're mastering in this phase. And that is consistency, that is adherence, that is understanding how to pivot. That's, accepting the fact that we always plan that not everything goes to plan. That's us working on body recomposition. That's us working on things internally, hormonally. That is us working on things mentally, mindset wise. That is us really planting our seeds and building that runway. And once we've mastered this phase, and again, how long is going to be very unique and individual to you, then we can appropriately switch to a phase of fat loss. And once we hit fat loss, and this is the phase that everybody thinks that they need, and the reality is you're not even close to being in a space where your body will respond to a diet. At least when I say respond, I always mean lose it and actually keep it off, right? And I think people think like, oh, I can lose the weight, but yeah, I know you can, but can you keep it off? That's a completely different story. And so when we hit fat loss, it's very strategic on my team. There's a start date, there's an end date-ish, right? Like we utilize what we call rounds. So we go in for round 1. It's usually 6 to 8 weeks, the first round, depending on biofeedback markers. We'll go in for a short diet break, and then we'll go in for round 2, where we tend to get a bit more aggressive than we did in round 1. But there is a start date, there is an end date, because this is where so many struggle and they spin their wheels, is they want to live in the diet and they never normalize calories, right? And they're like, they get like that instant dopamine hit when we start to watch the scale go down, and they feel like that, adding food in is going to quote unquote make them gain weight. And the fearfulness, that's why we have to have such a solid relationship with food going into it. And this is done strategically, right? We tier calories down strategically, dependent on a lot of different things. And so if this is something that you're going from a phase of maintenance, going to a fat loss phase, some tips that I can give you, and I really want to dive in with Bouquet and Ann here too for a second, but some tips that I can give you. Please don't take the person that takes you down to dog shit low calories right away. It's not needed. It is not needed to go from 2,300 calories down to 1,200 calories right out of the gate. It's just not. We're doing so many things when we downregulate metabolic, hormonal, biofeedback markers. As adaptations occur, it's making it so much harder for you to like consistently be able to continue to drop body fat, right? It's making it so much harder for you to be able to keep that weight off. And I see again, Dr. Ann shaking her head. So I'd love to hear your thoughts here.
Well, when we cut our calories, and I work with a lot of different types of eating disorders, and so I work with people that are heavy restrictors and binge eaters, and then the people that struggle with lots of different things. One of the things that I like talking about is an allocation of energy, kind of like a budget, right? So if my basic budget is, and this isn't actually what it is for every single person, but theoretically, basic budget, you can't go below 1,200 calories, because 1,200 calories, anything below that is completely a starvation diet. What happens is that when we hit that really low calorie load relatively quickly, like within, Bucket, you'd probably have better estimation on this, but within about 24 to 48 hours, our resting metabolic rate drops to manage that quick starvation mode. And what the body starts to do, it starts to allocate those calories based upon the organs that are necessary for survival. Ironically, one of the organs not necessary for survival is our limbic system. So we stop feeling less, other than hangry.
And that's a real emotion.
Yes, boy,
Just FYI, I feel that in my soul.
I deal with a lot of hangry people on a regular basis. But we can get really irritable, but we tend to not feel sadness or anxiety the same way, because literally the brain is allocating the limited resources to the basic functions necessary for life. And when you think about it like that, so I've reduced my calories so much that my brain has to allocate where I'm actually going to get my fuel needs met. Then what happens is, as we all do, right, is we hit a plateau anyway. You're going to hit that plateau no matter what calorie load that you start at when you're doing, and now you're going to have to go lower.
Yep.
And there's some interesting research on, anybody remember the show The Biggest Loser,
Yeah.
about what they did on that, because they got amazing results ridiculously fast. They worked like dogs. They were exercising, burning through more than the calories that they were consuming in the day. And after that, the longitudinal studies, which are the long-term studies of the participants of that program, they were actually maintaining a higher weight at 800 to 1,000 calories. They were below starvation level because of how significantly they had damaged their resting metabolic rate. Because our bodies are wired for survival, folks.
Yep.
And if you don't realize that, and all you want is the number on the scale, you're going to force your body into an adaptive response and into survival. And it is going to work against you to survive what you were doing to it, even if somebody on social media said it was what you do, and even if your best friend got results doing it.
Yep. Metabolic adaptation is a real thing. Our metabolism doesn't break, and there's so many influencers. It's broken, you're broken. It's not a thing, you guys, but it does adapt, right? And that's the natural piece of dieting. And this happens to everybody as we diet. We're bringing in less energy, adaptations, it takes, as far as like digestion starts to take a hit, like that's just normal as, natural biofeedback markers start to take a hit, and we weigh less, we need less to expend. There's so many things. So naturally we're burning less, and that's a piece of it, but it doesn't break. And just as it down regulates, it can upregulate, which we're going to talk about when we move you into more of a lifestyle integration phase. And I'm going to talk about that here in a second. But being able to tier calories down appropriately, the whole glow up, you guys, the real glow up is to be able to diet on as high as calories as you possibly can. Because let's talk about when we're dieting on higher calories, you actually have energy to show up to your training sessions, right? Like that's a huge piece of it. You have energy to continue to show up in life in general. When we're dieting on higher calories, your chances of adherence are 10 times higher, because at the end of the day, for so many, where you really struggle is you're truly living in a place where you're dieting mentally, girlfriend, you're not dieting physically. And at the end of the day, that's what it's coming down to for 95% of you. It really is. Yes, hormones can play a role into things. Yes, metabolic downregulation can play a role into things. But at the end of the day, hormones can be off, which can make achieving a calorie deficit, and I say off, not optimal, 10 times harder to do. Those are big pieces of it. But at the end of the day, the majority of you are doing this mentally, not physically. And what that looks like is I eat extreme low calories for a period of time. I can't sustain and maintain that, whether that be a social situation, weekends, I want to enjoy life, my body's screaming at me, I'm hangry, like we just chatted about. You put yourself in and around food, and a signature saying of mine, but you eat like an asshole. And it is so easy to consume 3, 4, 5,000 calories in one meal, right? Like without even realizing it, especially you start adding in booze to that. Don't even get me started there. And you're just like, and that has thrown off your caloric deficit, or that has thrown off your calorie range for the entire freaking week. So even though you're doing the thing, the majority of the time, you're reaping zero, zilch, not a results that come with that. And that is the most frustrating space to be in, because this is exactly for the females, are constantly dieting and seeing no results that go with it. And that's truly what it is for the majority of people. And it's like mentally you're doing it, like, mentally you're living in it, but you forget the 2 days to 2.5 days when you're just full sending it, right? Like it's balls to the wall, and you went out to dinner with your girlfriends and you're like, well, I already blew it. And that washed right into Saturday. And it's like donuts and cookies and, one more, night out with my hubby and all of these things. And it's usually some point about midday, Sunday evening. So when you start kicking yourself in the ass, and then Monday rolls around, wash, rinse, repeat. And so your results in fat loss are purely dependent upon your adherence. like at the end of the day. And when I say accuracy and consistency drive our success, I mean it. And so when I say the glow up is to be able to diet on as high as calories as you possibly can, that's going to give you so much more flexibility and freedom to actually stay adherent to. Nobody can eat low calories day in and day out and stay adherent to it. Nobody's thriving off of that. I don't care how disciplined you think you are, right? It's not a flex. It's not. And I feel like people look at the whole 1200 calorie approach as this flex, and it's not. It's just, it's for you, it's a really like a strong, like, you know, just really shitty relationship to food, I guess, to be honest with you. It's, you know, like there's just so many things wrong with that. I'm trying to find the right word here, but it's, and so more food is, it's going to increase your adherence. It's going to increase how you feel. It's going to increase the way that you show up. And nobody wants to like have to live on low calories. You guys, nobody does. And I'm not saying there's not a time and place for lower calories strategically when implemented, because there absolutely is. And it should be tiered down. Like your calories should be tiered down, and there should be a strategy behind that, right? But at the end of the day, more so than the dieting phase, it's always what's the diet after the diet and what's the plan after the diet. And this is where I want to move into. So after you've lost, you know, the weight and, you know, you're feeling good, what's the strategy to get you out of the diet, and how do you normalize calories? And that's where we move into that lifestyle integration phase. And this is when we start a strategic reverse diet at this phase. And a strategic reverse diet, you guys, is simply the act of undieting, right? This is us strategically going in and increasing calories every week, every 2 weeks, as your body responds to find your new maintenance calories. Because especially if you've lost a substantial amount of weight, your maintenance calories are going to be less. You're just now a smaller human being. And so it's going to be us refinding those maintenance calories and bringing and normalizing calories again. And then how we lose it and keep it off is we wash, rinse, and repeat these cycles. And so those that, you know, have a bit more to lose, you could probably spend a few more, like you could spend, you know, more time throughout the year dieting, but the leaner you become, the more strategy that's required. Because I can tell you, and that's a whole different episode, like it's a whole different like TED talk for me here, but the leaner you become, it becomes less about just watching the scale go down and more about actually changing the way that your body looks. And that's a completely different strategy than dieting. It just is. But that's truly how we phase this on my team. And when I say that there is a reason behind every season, I absolutely mean it. But I would love to hear your guys' thoughts, both Bouquet and Anna. If you want to start just you going through the program, like obviously we chatted a little bit about what we're doing internally, but just from like your stance and medical professional, what the difference here of how we operate versus quote unquote other programs and maybe, you know, other fad diets that you've seen.
Yeah, so I liked the fact that I was doing a different program before you. It wasn't really it wasn't personalized. And being that I come from a medical professional, I just had a little bit more knowledge, but still needed much more knowledge. But I feel like a lot of programs want to cater to what the client wants, and everybody wants to
Mhm.
diet right away.
Yeah.
And I think for you with your team, you don't. I think most of your ladies don't start on a diet. Most of them need to learn to eat more and why eating more is okay and all the things that Dr. Ann was talking about. So my journey was very much that. I went to a different program and I had already come out of keto and I was plateaued and wanted to lose more weight. I wanted my relationship to gravity to be a little less, right? So that's what they did for me. They gave me dog shit low calories. They said I need to do more cardio to sweat it off more and this, that, and the other. So I followed it. And I think it was like a month 2 or 3 that I was just like, I feel like shit. Like I don't feel good. I feel like I have no energy. I feel like my hair's thinning out. I can't. And then I started craving things like I want a fucking cake. Like I want to eat bad food. I want to eat a lot of it. And so I derailed. And then when I talk to you, it's like, no, we're not starting on a diet. We need to feed you more. And so I like that I like that your program and your team doesn't give the client what the client wants, because the client sometimes doesn't know what they need and really
Yes.
want.
Want
They
and
need
need
an
are two different
objective.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, and they need an objective view. So I like that it's very objective, and I'm very like stubborn. So it's nice to have, well, you were my coach actually. And you just told me like it is. You're like, no, you need to eat more. This is why I need you to lift heavier. You can go heavier. If you eat more, you can lift heavier. And so like it just started making sense. And so that's the difference, I think, is that, you know, investing in yourself is a cost, but do you want to invest in a coach or a provider that's going to tell you what you think you need to hear, or someone who's going to tell you really like it is? And I practice the same way in my office. I turn people away a lot. Hey, I'm not your provider. I'm not going to help you lose 10 pounds in 10 days. Wrong person. Maybe someone down the street will do that for you, but I'm here to help you for long-term success. So that's the big difference.
It's huge. And girlfriend's booty gains, can we just like, that's a whole different story. Like
Oh,
it's a whole
yeah.
different post for
My
another day.
butt's gotten really big.
It's fire. It's fire. I know Dr. Ann's kind of on a time crunch here, so I'm going to let her dive in super quick and then we'll wrap this up. But I know for you, Ann, I mean, your before and afters are insane as well. We've been able to really drop some body fat.
Ann's like freaking got muscles.
I know. Ann's
We went to
muscle
the
mama.
trip.
I know she is.
One of your coaches and I were in a room. I'm not going to take too long. I just have to share this and flaunt it because you're a baddie. Okay.
Oh yeah, she
So
is.
we were in the car and she was moving the trash cans. And as she was moving the trash cans, and those could see the video, like you can see from far away, like her definition in her arms as she was pulling.
Yeah.
And me and one of your coaches were like, damn, Dr. Ann?
Yeah.
And she was like, what? We're like, get back in the car. We're about to tell you how sexy you are. Anyways, go ahead.
That was so sweet.
It's true.
What was really, I think it was interesting for me is that because I was someone who struggled with an eating disorder for a big chunk of my life. And I started really early and I did anorexia to bulimia to binge eating disorder. I mean, I decided to dabble in all of them and then did every diet under the sun to try to manage my weight. And so my recovery, I felt, was, fought for with blood, sweat, and tears. And so by the time I made it to my 30s and I achieved this golden state of homeostasis where I figured out how my body worked and what I needed to do and how to exercise and all this stuff, and I was loving life. I was living like no more food stuff. I was eating food that I wanted to eat. I wasn't eating other stuff. Like I felt disciplined, and I hit my 40s and I was still doing the same stuff, but the weight started going up, and it was like, okay, it's fine. And then I got my hormones checked. Well, my hormones were off, and now I'm fully in menopause. And in the span of that decade, in my 40s, I went from premenopause to menopause really fast, but my weight just piled on, and it piled in areas that I had never experienced it before. And all the things that I was doing with hormones and all the work that I was doing, I was cycling 100 miles a week, not for the calories, but because I'm a cardio junkie. I just love it. I love being out in the countryside. And I started this program. My coach looked at me and she goes, you're going to have to reduce that. And I was like, what? Wait, what?
Like, that wasn't part of this plan. I wasn't know.
and we talked about strength training and the utility of this. And I was all right, I'll give it a shot, but I'm still going to ride. She's like, okay, but can we get it down to 2 days a week? And I was like, all right, that's fine. And she goes, and you're going to have to eat more to get those 2 days. That's fine. I don't care. I just want to do it. And what was interesting is my body fat went from, not that I was really tracking body fat, but it was like, I had been so married to the number my whole life that I was trying so hard not to be married to the numbers. Right. And so hard to just show up and do the next right thing, regardless of what I felt I saw in the mirror or didn't see in the mirror, what the scale did or didn't say. And I went in and I got an in-body done, totally random, halfway through this program. And I had gone from 21% or 22% body fat to 18% body fat. And I think I only lost like 5 pounds. It wasn't, but I feel strong. I feel capable. I'm at the gym and I'm not spending hours on my bike, although I do miss some of it. And even my coach said, if you want to put it back. And I was like, no, I don't want my life to be so out of balance that I'm at the gym and cycling and then at the gym again. I kind of like this.
Yes.
But my non-negotiables for any program, and I'd never done a program before because I didn't want someone to take me to low calories or tell me that I couldn't eat foods that I like, because to me, I had to fight for that.
Yep.
And that was one of the things that my coach said. She's like, well, maybe you want to drink less of your calories. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not like that. I worked for that. I'm not, I can pare it down. And she was like, that's fine. That's good. Just want to know what that does. And she gave me the information. I really appreciated that.
I love that. I love that. And I love, like you said, I really love, like, did you ever think starting this saying somebody's going to pull this back for me? And then I would honestly come back and say, no, I really love the fact that you pulled this back, coming from somebody that was a cardio junkie, right? And you start to, you start to realize how much better you feel. And there's a space of when we start to look better, you guys, there's nothing wrong with acknowledging the fact that your body's changing and you put a lot of hard work into that. Own that, own that. And so there's just so much power when you have a plan that's truly custom to you and you have a plan that's not based purely in and around restriction, because again, I'm not your quick fix. My team never has been and never will be, but we are your forever fix. So I think we're going to wrap it up on that. If you guys have any questions with this podcast, anything that I can help support you with, as always, my DMs are always, always, always open. I know Dr. Anna Bouquet as well. We truly appreciate every single one of your guys' support. A 5-star review and rating would help us more than you even know, particularly as this is just a new podcast and we're trying to push it out into the algorithm gods. And the only way it's going to get out there is if you guys can help to like, share, tag us on social media, do all of the things. But we will see you guys in the next episode. Ciao.
If this is helpful, give me a like, follow me, or subscribe for more.